So Harriet, it's really good to talk to you.
Thank you for having me.
No, not at all. And we're really excited that you continue to make a contribution to Aurora. Be really helpful, I think, for women who will watch this and anyone who will watch this to hear what you think about the challenges that women face as both aspiring to be leaders or established in leadership.
I think it's really interesting having watched the presidential election a few months ago, because I think had Hillary Clinton won, we would probably be saying that women didn't have a problem with leadership. That look, we've got a female president of the United States, the problem has been solved, we need not worry about this anymore. And so actually having Donald Trump win instead, I think has really highlighted that it is still a massive problem and that it's still much harder for women to get to the top than it is for men. And the reality is that actually as a woman you still have to work twice as hard to be recognised half as much. Women are told to not acknowledge those reasons. They're told that they don't exist, or that if they just work hard enough, if they behave in the right way, if they do the right thing, they will succeed. And actually it's acknowledging that that's not enough, that actually you have to be aware of what's happening around you and how you manage that as well. What I'm hopeful for is that actually when we get a critical mass of women at the top in leadership roles, not only will we change how women and men behave with each other, but actually will change how society works. And that for me is why it's critical.
So what do you think is the difference between people who are starting out on their leadership journey? In Aurora, we very much see women who are just considering leadership versus someone who is established in a leadership role.
I mean, probably optimism. So I think when you start out with lots of great intentions and you're really fired up and you really want to make a difference and make a change. And it's very easy to then get bogged down in the structure of the organisation that you're working for. Whenever you work anywhere for a long period of time, you start to think that the way it works is just the way it works and that actually changing it isn't possible. But when you're young and you're just starting out, you have these ideas, you have that enthusiasm, you have stuff you want to change, you have a difference you want to make. And that's actually why we need both kind of younger and older leaders. We need people with less experience and more experience to challenge each other, to really analyse why we do the things we do rather than just doing them. But then also to look at how is that going to work within the wider system and how do we make that change sustainable.
And you've been involved with Aurora since last year as a stimulus for them. What would you say was the biggest insight you've had from working in higher education, looking at women on their leadership journey?
I think probably the biggest insight I had was actually just how much the subject needs to be discussed. And how strongly the women working in this sector feel that it's not being discussed enough. So the work that Aurora does is fantastic because it brings it to the forefront and it gives it a platform and a voice. But the feedback I certainly got, after the event and after the work I've been doing with you was, thank God we have this, because otherwise it's really hard to be heard. And that I think goes across all businesses, goes across all institutions. But in higher education, I think that's going to be the greatest learning, which is how can we make sure the voices of the women working in it and leading it are properly being heard and acknowledged.
In your personal opinion, and what has been the greatest insight for you as a woman in terms of your journey to leadership?
That it is not you, that the strange situations that you face, that weird feeling of not knowing what everyone's talking about in the meeting, or that somebody's made a decision that you weren't aware of, or hang on, why have we just hired that guy that nobody's heard of but he's really good mates with that other guy? It's not you, okay? It is that the society around you and the structures around you have been built not just to support men but to support a particular type of man, and nobody's challenged them and nobody's changed them. So we actually need really brilliant women to stand up and say, this feels a bit odd and I'm not okay with it, how can we make it better?